Hello everybody, welcome back to the Overlap Breakdown channel. I'm joined as always by my co-host Umir, who's a professional football scout and analyst, and we're here to pick one perfect transfer for every single Premier League club this January transfer window. Just in case anyone's curious, we have no idea who we've picked for each club, so we could have obviously players who we've both picked for one club, which is going to be interesting, but I guess I'm going to start right from the top because I've got number one, which is Arsenal. And just for everyone, we're recording this on a Monday after the FA Cup third round tie against Manchester United. And this player that I've got is very interesting in terms of what we saw from that game. And I've gone with Alex Baina.
Ciao.
I think... Me and Umir spoke about this a lot going into the season. He's a 23-year-old midfielder from Villarreal who's played mostly as a left centre midfielder, but has also had time out on the wing. And I'm not going to say he's a left winger, but I think we had a conversation quite early on in the season about how Arsenal were going to this like bulldozer approach and had a lot of big lads and set pieces and duels and stuff. And I actually think they've almost lost a bit of that technical flair within their team. Yeah, they became a big space team. They've lost ability. Yeah, they've lost ability in the pockets, and without like Martin Odegaard and Bukayo Saka on form and combining with like Timber and stuff, I feel like they've really missed a bit of fluidity, especially on that left-hand side. So I have picked Baina. I think I've watched him quite a lot. He's got 4 goals, 5 assists and 16 La Liga appearances. He's second in the league for expected assists and second for most key passes in La Liga too, behind in both metrics only to Rafinha, who's been one of the best players in the world.
The best in the world at the moment, yeah.
Honestly, he's been incredible. We're coming off the El Clasico Super Cup where he was absolutely incredible again. And I think this is just a player that I look at and I think that Arsenal need. I actually thought Fabio Vieira was going to be that player who was going to play these really risk-taking, high-volume, chance-creating passes, and it just hasn't played out like that. And I look at a player like Bruno Fernandes for Manchester United, who in these big games recently for United and historically in his Manchester United career can create something out of nothing. And I'm looking for a player who wants to take risks, who's good in the pocket, who's got an eye for a pass, maybe even takes set pieces and just be really aggressive on the ball. And I think this is the perfect sort of player. I like the fact that he's a left centre midfielder, but can also he's also comfortable rotating with a left back and a left winger, and swapping positions and being really nippy inside the pocket. And yeah, I just look at this player and I think he's. I don't think he'd be ridiculously expensive. I think Arsenal have signed. Not old players, but I think he also brings the average age of the squad back down. He's only 23 years old. And in La Liga, he's first for passes into the penalty area, which is what Arsenal want if they're facing low blocks. And I think Martin Odegaard has come under a lot of scrutiny by Arsenal fans because he's not a player who's going to play them risk-taking passes, and he's not a player who's going to constantly break down these blocks. He's more of a fluid player in the pocket who's really good, really silky on the ball. And I think they just need a volume high... I've always said this, but I think Declan Rice is just a number 6. I don't like the number 8 experiment. I've said this to you before, but I just don't see how Rice is used best as an 8. I think he's a number 6 in front of a back 4. And I think you play 2 split 8s ahead of him. I think you drop in Martin Odegaard when you need him to beat the press and take the ball, and you leave a player like Alex Baina high. And that's the way I look at it. I think another player who's in this type of mould, I kind of overlooked him, but Xavi Simons, I think is, or Xavi Simons,
brilliant footballer, yeah.
He's similar to, goals, assists, high quality, high volume, chance creating, quality. Smart. Yeah, that's the type of player I want. And I think I understand a lot of people saying they need a centre forward and a winger, but this is, that's who I'd go with. So. That's. I mean, I'm not sure what you think. Do you have him anywhere in your?
No, not in mine. And by the way, there's literally so many places to choose from. And also, we made our lists at about, I would say midnight, 1 a.m. So, he's not even a player that crossed my mind, but he's a brilliant player. And I've heard people who I respect and people whose takes that I appreciate mention him as a potential option for Arsenal as well. So if not him directly, certainly that sort of profile. So yeah, good shout. Like I'm not mad at it at all. So
right, on to you now.
I've got Aston Villa. I think I just kind of went through the teams that I'd been given and tried to pick a position that they could improve on most, and then think of what sort of player, what sort of profile in that position would work. And some of these names aren't the most realistic, but they're probably pushing the boundary of being feasible. And we've seen crazier transfers happen. But for Aston Villa, I've gone Jeremy Frimpong. I know it would be a downgrade, possibly a downgrade on his current team. In fact, he's in the Champions League and they're pushing high up on the table and things like that. But if I was to go through my rationale, I think, one, there's always the allure of moving to the Premier League, and I'm sure that there's teams doing a little bit better than Aston Villa who would be interested in Frimpong. But for Aston Villa, needing that sort of right-sided player, whether that be a fullback or a winger, I think he facilitates both. And if he were to play as a right back, the ability to push forward and be that sort of high and wide right-sided width, and then you bring in your right winger a little bit to play a little bit more narrow. Or you can just simply almost put him on that sort of right wing from the start, given his attacking quality. And also, like, Unai Emery, he likes moving between a 4 and a 5. I know he's played both, in the past as well. I just think he really suits that side, the way that they play. Watkins up top, Duran in the side. Whether he stays or whether he goes, we don't know. But yeah, that side in general for me, in around those sort of Europa League spaces or pushing Champions League spaces, in the Premier League, I think he really suits what they need.
Yeah, I think he's incredibly fast. Like, he's one of the fastest players in the Bundesliga, full stop, and probably one of the fastest players in Europe.
Yeah,
I think what you said there, having the ability to play him as a right midfielder and as a right back, is so good, because I think when in the bigger games they can play him as a right midfielder. He's played high for Leverkusen. I actually watched Leverkusen against Dortmund at the weekend, and he played as a right midfielder with Alex Grimaldo as a left midfielder in a 4-4-2 block, and it was like that's where I probably see him.
We've seen Unai Emery move into almost these sort of six at the back, settle defensive games. So even if you do play like a 4-4-2, which is what Aston Villa kind of, their team suits playing that sort of 4-4-2 formation. When you do drop in defensively, you got Frimpong, and I'm not saying Grimaldo, but someone like Grimaldo, left mid, right mid, and you got a back six that looks like that. It's almost six natural defenders, but also your left back or
the attacking quality.
They're very attacking, your flank players. So yeah, someone like that for me. But Frimpong, I think, if you do go big, it would be really ideal for that Villa side.
That's a strong start from you, I'm not gonna lie. Right. I've got Bournemouth. This was really tough, because I actually looked at Bournemouth's team and I didn't really see many holes. Obviously, they've got two strikers who've got big injuries, but I think signing a centre forward just to cover for injuries is a bit you've got two good centre forwards there. Got really good defenders. I think I looked at goalkeeper, but I think Kepa's just come in and he's okay. I've actually gone with a midfielder, and I've gone with Lamine Camara from Monaco. 21 years old, 2022 AFCON Young Player of the group stages. And I think for Iraola, this is a player who I think is exactly what he needs. I think we've often seen people like talk about the next Kante and the next big ball winner. And I actually think this guy's probably going to be the one to be that kind of player. He's a box to box midfielder. He's very active between both boxes. He's actually really good at going forward as well, like scarily good at going forward. But he's got the fourth most tackles in Ligue 1. He's a physicality first player, but he's really good technically. Very springy in the press. How Iraola likes his midfielders to be. And I'm looking at Tyler Adams, Ryan Christie, Lewis Cook, and players like that, and I'm looking at what they're missing, and I think an agile, small, volume, ball-winning midfielder to add to that midfield to stodge it up in there. And I think he could also be one of them players who can win the ball and drive forward for like meters and meters of grass. And I just think he's really, really good. And I watched him against Arsenal at the Emirates, and he was really sound, like really technically sound. Doesn't really lose the ball too much. I think at Arsenal he had like 45 out of 46 passes. Like, he barely misplaced anything, and he's just really good for 21 years old. He's played at AFCON in 2022, so that's 3 years ago. So he's got top flight experience, got minutes under his belt. He's playing in a really strong physical league. Yeah, I just love this player. I actually think he could possibly go a step higher than Bournemouth. I actually think he could play in Europe for a Premier League team. Yeah. But 21 years old, he's one of them players that I could see Bournemouth signing, integrating into the team, letting him grow, not putting too much pressure on him. They've got really good midfielders already. He doesn't have to deliver straight away. And I'm not sure about, with all these transfers, by the way, I'm not sure like if a player's being linked to a certain club, like if they're already like under negotiations with another club, or how much money certain clubs have to spend. But Lamine Camara for me isn't just one for Bournemouth, but I think if anyone wants a very good pressing midfielder who's really good between both boxes, both on the ball and off the ball, then this is the one.
Yeah, I think most of the players on my list as well, on your list, there'll be players who we think can make the step up to Premier League quality. And if we're
that's
going
what
on
I'm
sort of
looking for.
dream transfers or like ideal transfers, they're probably a slight step just above what will probably happen. But they fit perfectly. And I've not watched too much of him, but in terms of what you're describing, I think he fits into the philosophy of a Areola team. And I think people don't really appreciate, or clubs even at this highest level, don't really appreciate almost the role and the profile of players moving into a new philosophy and how that translates. So I think that's where good players end up making the wrong move. But yeah, given that consideration, I think certainly a good shout. Who do I have? I've got Brentford. Yeah, I've got Brentford.
Tough this.
So, Brentford's tough. I think they're an interesting team because we've mentioned this before, but home and away form is almost sort of yo-yoed between two extremes. With Brentford, I think their back line could do with a little bit of reinforcement. Got some less experienced players in that back line. I think their midfield is okay. Their front line good. So I looked for a centre back. I know that they tend to play with three at the back at times as well. And with that being said, you need a player who's fairly versatile positionally, but somebody who's physical enough to handle the Premier League. And with Brentford, they like to play on those long balls, those set pieces. How can you marry all of those qualities together? So I went for Sam Buchamer from Bologna, 6'2", tall, able to invert into sort of midfield positions and carry the ball really well. He's played sort of in the three at the back system in the past. I think he's got a nice long pass on him. Decently paced as well. So yeah, when you combine all of the attributes, and I think he's at a good age as well. I'd need to check, but I think he's 26, 27, something like that. Yeah. So yeah, I think natural tendency to be quite aggressive in his play, quite front-footed, which is something that Brentford have lacked a little bit. I think when we look at the teams like Nottingham Forest, for example, with their centre-backs, you kind of need like sort of a leader, somebody to hold the back line, and then somebody to push forward and be a bit more aggressive. And he's certainly somebody who can push forward and be that player with some other leaders in the back line. And yeah, I think he fits the philosophy of that team really well. And it's probably around about the time where he gets that move to the top level, because he's worked his way up the ranks. He's kind of proven himself now in Serie A, and yeah, it'll be nice to see Thomas Frank work with a player of that quality.
That seems like a really niche market opportunity, like 26 at Bologna. It seems like one of them that Brentford would actually go for. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like with players, I mean, it depends on how many minutes you play as a young player, but teams kind of don't like making the signings where it's like sort of 27, 28 in
on the
top,
edge.
Yeah, because they want to sign a project player or sign the star signing kind of thing. And yeah, I think in the Championship, that's another league where that really becomes an issue, in the sense that like there's 26 and 27-year-olds in the Championship who could do a really good job in the Premier League, but because they're at that age, they're almost kind of shoehorned into being at that level for the next few years. So yeah, anyway, that's a player who I think would make sense for Brentford. Probably higher, again, like you mentioned, but yeah, one that's impressed me.
Right, so moving on to the next one. For me, I've got Crystal Palace. This is a bit of an interesting one. So obviously they're signing Esse from Millwall, it looks like, and he's going to probably play as the right 10 or one of the 10s, so that's gone out the window. I think the standout position in this is left wing back, and I've actually gone for Maxime de Kuyper from Bruges. A player who's already got 5 caps for Belgium. He's one of the most exciting players in Belgium at the moment, one of the most attacking wing backs in the division. He's third for expected assists, but he's only got 2 assists from 6.1 expected assists, which basically means he's feeding really high quality chances to strikers who aren't finishing them. So obviously pairing him with better quality players, you will only really expect the return on them numbers to go greater. He's third for chances created overall. He's an attacking first player, overlaps for fun. He can play both sides of the wing back as well. And I think it's a position on the left side of the wing backs where Crystal Palace really needs some depth there, some strong depth, and the fact that he's capable of playing both sides is really good. And I think they just need energy on the ball, pace behind the last line, and someone who can go between the boxes, similar to Manchester United with that wing back. So Maxime de Kuyper is definitely one to keep an eye out, not just for Crystal Palace, but just in going forward. He's 24 years old and he's really starting to come into his own now in the last few years and seasons. So that's who I've got for Palace. Who have you got, Umar?
I got Chelsea. Bit of a rogue shout, but looked at their team and I thought, look, they're balanced, but a true number 6 is kind of what they need or what they'd excel with. I really like the pivot of Lavia and Caicedo. Obviously, Lavia has his injuries, and he's also somebody who probably makes sense as being that second defensive midfielder rather than that sort of sitting number 6. So I've gone for a little bit out of the box. Ruben Neves, I know he's at Saudi.
Wow.
But he's somebody who I think his contract's expiring, not at the end of this season, but perhaps at the end of next season. He's come out and said, look, he's happier in the Saudi league and he'll probably stay there. But as a player who's not, massively old, as somebody who is really assured as that sitting number 6, I think it would be foolish for teams not to try and entice him back to play at the highest level. As a City fan, I would be happy to see him come and play for us in that number 6 role with Rodri being out at the moment. But I think, if I'm looking at the team in general, I think he would suit that. And we know his quality, shots from the edge of the box, ability to switch play, ability to receive the ball and dictate play from deep. And you don't lose that quality. It might take some time to get back up to speed, but we've seen in the international tournaments, the players that have moved to Saudi still have it and still have the quality to play at the highest level. Kante, Laporte, etc. So for me, I think, he would really be impressive in that position. And I hope to see him in the top division this season, next season, at some point when his contract does expire, at the very least.
Yeah, I just checked his age. He's only 27. I thought he was a lot older than that.
In his prime. So
no, it's a really good. I like how you're going for market opportunities and you're going for like players who maybe wouldn't be available like next year or the year before for the similar price and stuff. So it's a good shout. I like the range on that. So right, next up I've got Fulham. I've actually gone for a centre forward. So Jimenez is 33 years old, and I think there's doubts about him signing a new deal, and if he does, obviously he's 33 still. And Rodrigo Muniz hasn't hit the heights of the back end of last season. So I'm looking for a centre forward. I actually had a look at this. There's 2 Serie A lads, Lorenzo Luca and Esposito for Empoli, but I've actually just gone with one who's just like never really been picked up. I've gone with Jonathan David, the 25-year-old from Lille. Honestly, I don't know how. Yeah, I don't know how no one, it sounds stupid because it seems to be like a grey area on this signing where he might not be as good as he is, but his goal return season on season, his completeness, he's really good with his back to play, really technical in the pocket, stuff like that in front of the defence. He's very different to what Fulham have used with Jimenez and Muniz. I think that's very much true, but I also think that Fulham this season are trying to do a lot more play between the lines, and they're trying to develop their style. And I think a signing like this, 25 years old, the goal return, the stature he's got, not just in Ligue 1 but in the Champions League as we've seen it. I think if the clubs in the Champions League aren't going to take a bite at this, I'm looking at the teams just below that, and I'm looking at teams who need a centre forward, and I think this just sort of fits, especially if Fulham can maintain a really good place in the top half of the table. And it just seems that some of the bigger clubs in the Premier League are just passing up on this opportunity. I know West Ham been linked and stuff like that, but this seems more of a levelled fit in terms of where Fulham are at, where he's at, And if he plays well in the Prem off the back of that move, then maybe you can go again. But it does seem to be a grey area in this signing.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure what it is yet. I can't quite figure it out. But even if he's half the player he is in Ligue 1 with Lille, I think he's still a really good signing, and his contract's running down as well, so he's going to come at a cut price. So yeah, that's just a market opportunity that I think Fulham should be looking at in particular. But yeah, who have you got?
I've got Everton. This is my horror show. Before we start recording, I mentioned, look, I'm changing my answer. So literally about 2 minutes before we started, I changed my answer. And I'm not gonna lie, I feel like it's a little bit of a cop-out. But I've gone Thomas Souček. Obviously, David Moyes. By the way, isn't the title something like Dream Signing or something? So apologies to all the Everton fans out there. But like, this is almost just like a...
Who was your original answer?
Way worse. James Ward-Prowse. This is a 2 a.m. This is a 2 a.m. Babies on the side. Do you know what I mean? We gotta get the list done. But listen, hear me out on Souček.
No.
Look, you need your David Moyes lamppost in the team. Who's your trusted lamppost? You got your Fellaini, you got your Souček. Who did you have for Everton? You get Souček again. In my head, I just think Graham Potter's not necessarily going to use him. He's 29. He's got a couple of seasons. You can probably entice them to part with him at the moment, and he gets you enough in the set pieces, enough in both boxes to win you 3-6 points that help keep you up. So it's less so a dream signing, but it's more so
it's a good sensible, yeah. It's a practical one.
Yeah, a practical one. You know, Moyes has managed him before. I think he's a piece that moves the needle. He's not going to change the philosophy of your club and drive home, a transformation into the top half. But can he do the job now from January onwards? And I think, yeah, he makes sense, and he brings you points now. So yeah, that's my rationale, and I thought of it 2 minutes before the podcast. So
I'm not gonna lie, I laughed at it, but you kind of like sort of convinced me with the points thing. It's like he probably does win them about 4 or 5 points, maybe 6 points, and that's probably enough to keep them up. So in theory, if you were going to sign a perfect player in January for where they are, and the price is going to come out, I reckon that he does. Moyes strikes me as the type of guy who's going to get his trusted players in, people who know how to work under him
to do the job, isn't it? So for now, I think it makes sense. We're taking the context of the team into account, aren't we? And they'll need longer to rebuild. So bring Souček to Everton.
The Toffees. So for the next one, I've got Leicester City. I don't know why, but I feel like I've really cooked with this one. So I had to throw in a couple Championship players in this somewhere, because I absolutely love the hit rate from there. I've got Aaron Cashin from Derby County, a 23-year-old left centre half. I've actually watched quite a lot of Leicester, mostly under Steve Cooper, but even now under Ruud van Nistelrooy, and they do the lopsided build-up where the left-back becomes a left centre half on the ball. Aaron Cashin is the perfect player for that role. He's played left-back before. He's only 5'11", but think of him as like an Irish Martinez, where he's really aggressive in duels, he's first to everything, but his quality on the ball is undeniable, like it's unbelievable. And I watched him a lot in League One last season. I was scouting Charlie Hughes and Ronnie Edwards, who've gone on to have a big move. Charlie Hughes went to Hull, Ronnie Edwards went to Southampton, and I'm now looking at Aaron Cashin at 23 years old, lying in and around that vicinity, looking at him going, right, so who's going to be the club to get him? And I'm looking at Leicester City, who are probably going to go back down. I don't think he'll cost you that much money. He fixes your defensive problems in terms of the aggression, but he brings quality on the ball to go into the Championship and dominate possession and play with the ball. His long-range passing, mate, I'm telling you, is ridiculous. Like the variety he has on the ball, it's so good. Like, but Martinez is more of like a zipper or a carrier. Like everything's on the deck. His switches of play, his clipped balls, his fizzed balls are just so good. And I think there's concerns about him defending wide and spacing behind. He's not the fastest, same as Martinez. But I think what he offers you is a really, really good, solid player on the ball. And yeah, I just really like this signing. I have to throw in a few players from the Championship, but this was the one that stood out to me. Yeah. this is the one that stood out to me that I was like, I'm looking for a player who Leicester are going to go down. Who can they get who's going to excel in a championship, who's been there, good age, good price, and that's mine. So go on. Bear in mind, Leicester City is very hard, by the way.
Yeah,
that's such a hard one. But yeah,
I've got Ipswich next, so I probably struggled equally. But with Ipswich, I think they've got a philosophy. They've got a transfer strategy, and that makes sense, and it's easier to find someone that kind of fits into that. I've gone for Alex Robertson of Cardiff, and I know Cardiff are lower down the league. We've talked about Alexander Robertson. He's somebody who's come through and played at Manchester City's academy. He had a brilliant campaign at Portsmouth before he got injured, and he's a very unique player. At Manchester City, he played more high up. He played in the front line. And then, for Portsmouth, he played more of a box-to-box midfielder. That's probably more his role now, probably second DM, box-to-box midfielder. Ability to crash the box and chip in with goals, ability to carry the ball really well, great technical quality to receive the ball under pressure, good shot on him from distance, great ball striking ability. So as this all-action box-to-box midfielder with some versatility and a good height in there, he boosts that technical floor a little bit for Ipswich. I think Ipswich, it's hard to pick in or narrow in on a single position, but I think Morsey aside, that defensive midfield area, you've got Calvin Phillips in there who's, I think he scored just this game gone past, but I think you look towards young players, and you look towards players who can kind of, establish you in the league a little bit, and whether or not you need someone more senior in the short term to make sure you stay up, that's another question. But I do think somebody like that fits in really well. Again, of a similar ilk and a similar pathway to someone like Liam Delap from Manchester City as well, which is probably why I did make that connection in the first instance. But a really good player, and somebody who I think, at least in a few years, should be establishing himself in the Premier League as a solid player.
I think if we fast forwarded a year from now, or even 6 months, and Ipswich stayed in the Premier League and Middlesbrough didn't come up, I'd say Hayden Hackney, outright.
Yeah.
I think that player suits Ipswich so much, because I think you're talking about someone who's a bit more technical in midfield.
Yeah.
And him on a half turn is absolutely brilliant. And I think if you were looking at someone who could do that, then it would be him. But with Middlesbrough season, the way that's going, the fifth in the league, it's like you don't want to, you know what I mean? Yeah. But no, it's a good shout. I like the Championship stuff, because got to tap into the market opportunities, always, man. I've got Manchester City. This was so Manchester City have been active in the market, which doesn't help me at all. So they've signed a lad from Lons at centre half. I can't pronounce his name, I'm not sure if you want to try. Or
I don't want to try. Maybe in the next podcast I'll try.
So yeah, signed a young centre half from Lons for €50 million. It looks like. I think they're looking at a couple more market opportunities, but I've actually looked at the centre of midfield. I don't know why City have kind of abandoned this in the market so far. I thought it would be the first cause for concern. I think centre half is a good cause for concern, but I think they've actually got quality there. Where in midfield, I think they've got deteriorating physicality in there. And I'm going to go for Samuele Ricci from Torino. You got linked with him in the summer, and he almost looked like it was going to happen as an emergency signing. But he's got long legs. He's mobile. He's a great passer of the ball on both feet. He can play as a single six and has played as a single six. He's kind of an old school Italian dictator of play, but he's really tall. He's got really long legs. He's lean. He's strong. Can receive on both feet. I just think this is a perfect fit. I think he's being linked quite heavily to some of the big dogs in Italy, and he's been pending a move for like 2 or 3 years now. I thought he's actually a really good signing for Liverpool if they couldn't get Zubimendi. I actually said that in the summer. But I think this guy will move in the next 6 months, and I think he will move to a Champions League, Europa League club, and I think it would be really hard to pinch him off one of them clubs come a year's time, 2 years' time, if you're looking for a number 6. And I think in a market where you've got your Carlos Balibas for £100 million, and these players like this, you're really looking for them niche opportunities where you can see how, if that player moves to City, how good they could become. And I look at Samuel Ritchie and I look at a player who wants the ball, who knows how to play with the ball, who's good off the ball, and I just think he would be perfect as someone who can play second fiddle to Rodri, but also have undeniable quality to step in when needed and take the load off him and not really pressure him too much. But yeah, that's my pick, and I'm not sure if you approve as a City fan, but
no, I hear it. I think that's certainly a position we need to bolster a little bit. I think with the players that we've signed at the moment, the one position that is missing, and there's sort of rumours that we might try and get someone in, is in that midfield. We're loading up heavily on the defence, and whether or not Pep's plan is to move one of the defenders into midfield, that's yet to be seen. But I would certainly try and get a midfielder regardless, and I think it's a good shout all the same. So I've got Liverpool next. Liverpool's a hard one because obviously they're doing so well. I think, in the summer there was always those talks about trying to get a number 6 in. I like how they've set up, and I do still think they need a number 6, but I thought, look, ideal signing, dream signing, who would I go with if I was Liverpool? And I've gone Ryan Cherki, bit out there, but brilliant footballer. And, especially in the last couple of games, I've been watching him, and I don't want to sound outlandish, but some of these clip passes that he's playing in behind, they're passes that, the all-timers play. There's criticisms about his game out of possession, but one thing we know from Arne Slot is, one, there's the ability to accommodate that, especially with Mo Salah. If Mo Salah is a player that's leaving, you could, in theory, accommodate a player like Cherki and his lack of out-of-possession work with a right winger that works a little bit more intensely. But on top of that, I do think Liverpool, in the few games that they have not played to the best of their ability, have struggled to unlock really deep set of defences, particularly teams that play 5 at the back. And Cherki is a player who can create chances out of nothing. He's brilliant at carrying it in big space. He's not the fastest player, but his technical quality, the skills, the angles at which he exits when he is dribbling the ball mean that he suits sort of the big space play, but also the really stubborn low blocks. And I think as a creative number 10, he would suit and elevate that Liverpool side. On top of that, this Liverpool side aren't one that press as high and as intensely as a Jurgen Klopp side did. There are good periods where they do sit back a little bit and manage space through their structure rather than through their individual duels. So for me, I think his on-ball quality is of such a ridiculously high level that you accommodate him, and I think Arne Slot is a manager who is best primed to get the best out of him at a level that he deserves to play at.
No, yeah, I thought you were actually going to say Kvara at first, Kvaratskhelia.
Yeah, I mean they're linked to Kvara.
That's what I thought it was coming. Yeah.
I think
I thought it'd have been like a cheap one, like a
yeah.
Yeah, might have been an easy
just get the list done.
With something else. Yeah, that was good. Nah, I enjoyed that. He was going to pop up somewhere, in there, so I'm happy that you said it.
Yeah.
So next I've got Brighton, and I did the same thing what you said before, where I just looked at the team and I just went, where have they not got the individual quality that they've got in other places in the team? And I've settled on a ball-playing centre-half of Brighton. I think Igor Van Heck is what they've been playing recently, but I think we've seen a little bit of a decline in Lewis Dunk over the last couple of months, last season-ish. And Igor's not really set the world alight for me. Van Heck's kind of come into his own, good on the ball, stuff like that, but I've looked at the market, and I think if they want to replicate something similar to Carlos Balíba's transfer, when he took a very relatively low minutes, fresh player from Ligue 1, I think they should look at Nathan Zizi from Nantes. He's absolutely brilliant. When people were talking about Lenny Yoro having these really long legs and big stature and great on the ball, he's left-footed, he's fast, he's decent enough on the ball, he's physical enough to go touch tight. I think when we talk about Brighton, I think they've had a lot of scrappy moments in the box. They've given up a lot of really crap goals. He's really physical, he's 6'3", he's long-legged, he's good at defending the box. He's only 19 years old, which is obviously a main question mark, but he's played his first season in professional football in the top flight of French football, and I think he's just brilliant. And I think if Brighton wanted to do something where they bought him and then loaned him back to nonce for the rest of the season. I wouldn't put that out of the realms of possibility for a club like Brighton. They're smart, they know what they're doing. And I think he's been linked to a lot of moves in Turkey for a very, very low fee, like a very 10 million, 15 million. And I think this is almost a risk-free buy that Brighton can platform in a year's time, and all it takes is 3-4 good games, and that price is sky high. So, yeah, I think he's really good. I think he's decent enough to take up what Brighton want to do with their centre half. So, yeah, that's who I've gone with.
Okay, so I've got United, and look, you having City and me having United is really, that's whoever done that, that's bad.
Poetic, isn't it?
It's poetic, but it's bad because now, if you make a take about United, it's fine because you can kind of just try. I'm a fan. It's in good faith. If I make one and people don't like it, it's like, oh, you're a City fan. It's bad. It's a bad take. But with anything, I'm going to say my player, and then people are going to think it's a bad decision, and then I'm going to explain it, and then people are going to think, oh, you know what, that kind of makes sense. So I've gone with, and I don't think they'll sell him, but I've gone with Dwight McNeil. Hear me out, okay?
Oh, fuck.
Because I love Dwight McNeil. I think he's a brilliant footballer. And the fact that he's producing on scraps for Everton is massively impressive. But I've gone Amrim team, Premier League proven. I think Dwight McNeil is like a very old school Sir Alex Ferguson signing. Quality in the number 10 positions, especially in those counter attacking situations, is top. Can play, left 10, right 10. Play left wing back, play right wing back. So you take 4 positions there. He's ex-United, so he knows what it means to represent a club like
He's
that.
United through and through.
He's United through and through. Mentality-wise, I think he would relish playing for United at the highest level, which is something that Amram has been, banging on about last few games, and we've seen that in that performance against Arsenal and the game prior as well. And on top of that, brilliant final ball quality, brilliant at carrying the ball. Premier League proven. I think he's a really good player, and I think he'd be
good for homegrown as well.
Yeah, homegrown as well. I think he would want to come as well. That's the other thing. I know United are not in the best situation, and they can attract big talent even when they aren't in the best of positions. But I think you've got to buy some astute players to raise the level. In the meantime, I know wing back positions can be, at the moment, they're defensive players. Ahmad played on the right and he was good, but now he's playing in those number 10 positions. But on that left side, do you have anyone who can do that? Again, he can play on the right side. Initially, I had Kudus, and I think Kudus is like an ideal right number 10 for Manchester United, a dream player. Under that one single game for Graham Potter, he basically played a role that Amrin might use him in, or could use him in, and he looked unbelievable. But I just thought this new transfer window, or someone like that in over a shorter time frame, that's probably a little bit more feasible. Dwight McNeil would raise the level of this squad. But if I'm saying, look, unlimited budget, like nothing, no holds barred, I'd go Kudus. But yeah, those two sort of players.
Nah, yeah, I kind of hear the justification for it. I think we always talked about him being like a good Simeone player. Like if he was like a Simeone winger, he'd be perfect. Like he's a 4-4-2 winger, which is obviously what United were built on. So, right, next I've got Newcastle United, and I looked at the team, and I think it's painfully obvious that you need a right winger. I think Jacob Murphy's done really well since coming in. But I think the conundrum with Harvey Barnes and Anthony Gordon both playing on the left-hand side and then them having to rotate and swap wings, they just need a right winger. I think it's that simple. Now, I wanted to go with a bit of a different dynamic to Gordon and Isak, who are runners. I wanted to give like a bit more stability to the front line, a bit more like ball-playing, technical, inside the pitch kind of player. So I've gone with Eden Zagrova from Lille. It sounds funny because his name's Eden, but he actually plays quite similar to Eden Hazard, like close to the floor, low centre of gravity, really good like shot from range. Like he scored multiple goals this season, just like smashing one from 30 yards. He's got insane ball striking. I think he's really technical. He's a goal first player. Just dribbles outside to inside, comes in off the right hand flank. He's a typical right winger. I actually had Johan Bakayoko from PSV before this. But I think that would be it'd be too much running in behind. Like I want someone who's going to probably come to get the ball a bit deeper.
You need your Lamine Yamal to the Rafinha kind of, that kind of
like
dynamic.
Do you know what I mean? I need like the balance in the front line. So I think I was going to go for a runner straight away, but then I thought about it and I went for a bit more of a technical play. And I think Eden Zagrova is he's ready for the move. I think he's shone at Lille so far this season. He's improving year on year. I think he is quite lazy out of possession, which is my only concern about him in an Eddie Howe team. And I think he's quite weak, like shoulder to shoulder, strength wise. But in terms of technical, for Newcastle to make a jump from a pressing team to a possession team, if they want to go higher up the league, I think a player like that would really sort out that attacking shift in terms of their focus. So, yeah.
Yeah, just to touch upon that, like when you mentioned that profile and that kind of player, I don't think he would move, and I don't think it's super feasible. But I think someone like Harvey Elliott would be ideal.
Yeah, that's the type of player I mean.
Yeah, pressing,
that's exactly what
that in-swinging cross. But yeah, it just came to mind. I thought I'd mention it in case he ever does make the move and I can clip it.
Yeah, that's good.
Cool. So I've got Nottingham Forest next. I've just gone off what Nottingham Forest fans have been telling me, in the sense that their team is looking for a striker if Chris Wood gets injured, which is 50-50 to me, because I'm a huge fan of Taiwo Awoniyi. Look, he's dealt with his own injury struggles and things like that, but look, I suppose he's at a point now in his career where he kind of needs to gain the trust back of his manager, and perhaps he's not trusted to play second fiddle to Chris Wood immediately. I think in an ideal situation, he gains his confidence. He scored recently, 93rd, 94th minute tap in, and maybe that helps kick him on a bit. But he's a brilliant player in my opinion, with brilliant potential. That aside, if I'm going off of what Forest are actually looking for, which is the number 9, I think Pedro from Flamengo, the Brazilian Pedro, would be a top signing. I've said this for years. I don't know how he's not got to move up. He had a stint, I think, for Fiorentina, maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago. I can't remember now, but it was a while back. He had a stint in Fiorentina that didn't go well. And from what I can remember, there were external factors that played a part into that, and whether that was sort of the team style itself or just sort of a lack of an adaptation. But I think that's put a lot of top European sides off of him as a player. For me, a few years ago, a couple of seasons ago, I was watching Flamengo, and I came back thinking João Gomez and Pedro were Premier League quality players, and like decent high level Premier League quality players. João Gomez obviously moved to Wolves, I think, the season after, and he's been brilliant as well. But Pedro, for me, he's in the ilk of someone like Giroud. The way he brings the ball down, he's massively technical in controlling it and then feeding it off, playing the passes in behind to wingers who are running off him. He's great in the air, and he's got brilliant movement in the box. So in a way, he's almost like a Chris Wood, Giroud type of player. He's Brazilian, so he's got that natural technical quality to marry those two sort of ideals. I think a Graham Potter side would be good to utilise a player like that. But if I'm going for a specific individual play that Nottingham Forest need, I would love for him to play and not have the pressure of being that number, that main striker straight away. But again, he would be leaving Flamengo and Brazil, where he's heralded as like a huge favourite and one of the league's best. So whether or not he does it, who knows? But a top quality player, and I'd love to see him in the Premier League.
Yeah, I think I like how you've gone with like a Brazilian league signing. Like Nottingham Forest have got a lot of Brazilians.
Yeah,
and,
great point.
Profile of him. Yeah, no, it's good that. I think I've gone with something actually quite similar for Southampton, like in terms of the culture of the club and like what they do.
Yeah,
this is a bit of recency bias, and my next 2 signings are loans, so this is a bit weird. But I've gone with Jadon Dans for Southampton. I think Liverpool and Southampton have got a really good connection in terms of like negotiating in the transfer market, and I don't think they've got a lot of money to spend anyway, Southampton, and they've been really looking for niche market opportunities in like League Two. He's got 3 goals in 100 minutes for Liverpool. He's really complete. He can play as a second 9 off Paul Onuachu, who seems to be the number 9, the favourite under Ivan Juric. He's a short-term fix. Dans can get some minutes in the Premier League, which is where I think he should be looking to play football, higher end Championship, lower tier Prem. And I just think he's really technical. He's good between the lines. He's mobile. He's physical, and I think it will really give him some time to get some minutes under his belt, playing in not a stress-free environment. Obviously, the bottom of the league and stuff, but it will give him a chance to experience the Premier League properly and really work himself into the Prem and get a feel for it. And I think if Liverpool aren't going to give him the minutes that he deserves, which they haven't so far this season, then I think this is a really good fit for him. If not a higher tier Championship club, but I think he's just mobile, technical. He's got lots of energy. He's brilliant with the ball to his feet. He's a big lad. He can bounce off players in the box. He's capable of scoring goals. He's got really good nous. I think he captained England's youth teams when they go to international tournaments when he was there. I think this is a really good opportunity for Southampton to have a player that the fans can get behind, connect with Tyler Diblin and stuff, and build a young core. So, yeah, I think I didn't really know what to do with Southampton, and I thought they're missing goals and they're missing enjoyment. And I think Tyler Diblin's been the most important player for them in terms of watching him play. And Jadon Danns, I think, would have that feeling on the team as well.
Good shout, man. I'm a big fan of Dan's. And yeah, I mean, I think sometimes you look at players or strikers who are in the Premier League getting minutes, and quality for quality, like, I think he's up there. I think obviously age-wise you want to protect the player a bit, but yeah, good shout. And I think Southampton would use him too much almost, but no, I really like it. Good to have him mentioned. I've got Spurs next. Spurs defensively, I think question marks obviously. The issue in my head is when your defenders are back and they're fit, as in Van de Ven and Romero. Like, is it still worthwhile signing a centre back? For me, I still think it is, because obviously they're playing full-backs and midfielders in there at the moment. But I've gone with Castillo Luqueba.
Oh, yeah.
We've spoken about him. We know him as a top quality player. He could probably play for, league contending teams, whether that's in Spain, whether that's in the Premier League. But for me, I've gone for him as a player because I think, given the way that Ange Postecoglou plays, first and foremost, there's a huge onus on the centre-backs. I think you need a player like Konate, or you need a player like Saliba. You need a player in there who can or Van Dijk, shoulder that responsibility when you do sort of have two defenders left at the back. Because, we've talked about, they almost go 2-1-7 at times. With Luqueba, I've gone for him because obviously he can play sort of as a left back if he needs to, and then you can still keep Van de Ven. Van de Ven as well can play sort of left back positions as well. So with those two, there is that sort of, there's potential to play them both together. Obviously Romero is sort of a mainstay when he does play as well. Luqueba, great on the ball, and great at defending wide channel areas. I think in general his quality, it's just sheer quality in the back line, isn't it? And it gives you that little bit of sort of competitiveness in that back line as to who plays. You don't want, it's nice to have a set defensive pairing, but if you know that there's somebody there, like Van de Ven challenging Luqueba, for example, or the left back position, I know they like to push their left backs high and wide, but it does open up the option of having three at the back and just assuring things up a little bit more in possession. So a top player would do well for any side, but yeah, in my head, I think that's where they need to show things up, and he's an opportunity in the market for a lot of these top sides.
Yeah, no, great shot. As you said, we spoke about him a lot. So, yeah, I actually think he could play for Arsenal, City, Liverpool. He could play for anyone, really. Really good ceiling on him. I've actually got my last signing, which again is a loan one, like I said, and I've actually robbed you of this one. I'm not going to lie. So I've got West Ham. And I've gone with Evan Ferguson on loan, like you said.
It's good. It's a good shout, isn't it?
Mate, it was such a good shout. When I heard it, I was like, he must have had that brewing for ages, because it was such a good shout. I was looking at so West Ham, obviously, Fulcrum got injured in the cup game against Villa. Evan Ferguson's not getting a sniff at Brighton because he's low in confidence. He's not getting the minutes. He's coming back from injury. Where else better to go than under a really good coach in Graham Potter, a side that looks to be playing more possession-based football like a Brighton wants to do, but they're also going to use Evan Ferguson to his strengths, which is hitting the ball into him, using him as a target man, but also letting him be more mobile. In the Graham Potter piece, we spoke about how mobile he likes his centre-forwards to be, not just using him as a target man, but can you be a target man, but can you also be a false nine and drift into the pockets and then still run the channels well? I look at Evan Ferguson and I think, with confidence under his belt, this is one of the best centre forwards in the league potentially. I absolutely love this bloke, and I think he's a top centre forward, easily Champions League quality. The environment that Potter's trying to build there, what he's currently going for at Brighton, I think it's just an easy move to make, and I've already seen him linked to like Bournemouth and stuff like that. So yeah, definitely one for West Ham to watch out for, but I'd like you to finish up on our last team, which is Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Wolves is a tough one. Again, I kind of went off of what their fans were saying. I think backline needs to be improved. When I looked at the Wolves team, actually, I'm not sure why they're struggling as much as they are, because I think they have a really good side. Good attackers, Cunha, the standout, obviously, and, I'm surprised actually we've not mentioned him for one of the other sides, but, I really like their midfield as well. Their wing backs perhaps is, an area that you can look at, but I've gone for a centre back. Whether or not it moved the needle immediately, I'm not sure. It's more probably of a project signing rather than an idealistic sort of dream transfer. But somebody who I think is good and somebody who I think would do well for Wolves is I've gone Callum Doyle of Norwich. Callum Doyle is obviously, again, ex-City, which is where I know him from. I still think actually City are his parent club. I think he's on loan at Norwich. And he's been good. He's been playing in a sort of a difficult setup at times. He's been playing left back, and obviously I think naturally his position is as a left centre back. I think with Wolves playing with a 3 at the back at times, him playing in that left centre back role kind of marries the two positions, and one, provides him a little bit of cover, but two, allows him to express some of that quality with regards to his ability on the ball. Obviously left-footed, and I think as a left-sided defender of a back 3, it's always a position that's kind of in demand but hard to find. He's somebody who has a high ceiling on him. Again, similar to sort of the Tommy Doyle move to Wolves, and he's a player who Wolves fans have sometimes asked for him to play more. But that Manchester City connection from the academy kind of makes sense to me as well, in terms of embedding a player and getting him to excel. But certainly a top quality player, very technical, and the ability to break lines with his passing. I think I really want to see him get some minutes now, sort of in the lower half of the Premier League, and whether or not Manchester City, end that loan with Norwich and loan him out to one of those clubs before he makes that move permanently. We've kept him on loan at all these various clubs, so we must trust that there is kind of the quality in there for him to potentially skyrocket. And done great for the English youth setups. I would really like to see him in the Premier League somewhere, and Wolves is where I kind of fit him in my list.
Right, thank you very much for watching this transfer special here on the Overlap Breakdown channel. If you did enjoy, please don't forget to like, comment and share it around, and let us know who you would sign for your Premier League club in this January transfer window. Thank you very much, and we'll see you again.